This episode is brought to you by Lumina Growth Lab. At Lumina, we help professional learning and development companies who are struggling with predictable lead flow, a sniper approach to attracting the ideal clients, and a system that qualifies leads so they can have smoother sales process, finally have scalability, and ultimately take their business to the next level. Most of the time, our clients come to us frustrated because nothing seems to work outside of word of mouth and referral-based lead generation. But with the right strategy and support, they're able to confidently add new channels of lead gen, leading to a packed pipeline that creates sustainable revenue and year-over-year growth for cheaper than ever before because of the use of AI technologies. If that sounds like you or someone you know, connect with me on LinkedIn and I'd be happy to have a conversation with you about unlocking your business's potential. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the Marketing Matrix. I'm your host, Lisanne Murphy, and today I am joined by the incredible and talented Josh Seiden. Josh, thank you so much for coming onto the show today.
Oh, it's great to be here.
Guys, I am really, really excited for this conversation. I had an opportunity to meet Josh recently, and I was just really impressed with his down-to-earth nature, but his ambition as well. And he is a smart, smart dude. So I'm really excited to have you guys be able to get an inside window into the conversation we're about to unfold. But before I let him kind of get started and take the microphone, I want to introduce him a little bit more formally. So Josh Seiden provides coaching, training, and strategic guidance to companies that are building digital products and digital capabilities. His work helps companies be more aligned, strategic, customer-centric, and agile. He's the author of Outcomes Over Output and the co-author of Sense and Respond and Lean UX. And most recently, Who Does What by How Much? A practical guide to customer-centric OKRs. He is the co-founder of Sense and Respond Learning, a company that provides training services to organizations across the globe. So guys, wherever you're at, give a round of applause for Josh. We are so excited for what is about to come our way. So again, thank you, Josh, for being here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation.
I love it. Okay, so for people that don't know much about you, like give us some background. Like, how did you get so interested in the work that you're doing and the prolific writing that you do? Like, give us a little bit of the landscape, the backscape landscape.
So, my career started in a weird way. I think many careers start sort of as an accident. I moved to Silicon Valley and I sort of fell into the technology industry. I'd always had an interest in computers and I was out there sort of before the internet became a thing. And I was working for a little tech company and I sort of grew into a role there, which a product management and design role where I was leading a team that was building software. I'm not an engineer, but I was working with them, doing all the things that need to get done in technology to make great software, except make the software. So help the team figure out what to do, help the team figure out what the customer needs, translate those customer needs into things that talented engineers can build. And so these days we know that as product management and design. I didn't really have a name for it then. And so I just sort of stumbled into it. And over the years, I became fascinated with how you do that work well. It's really hard, really interesting. My brain is drawn to puzzles. It's a really interesting puzzle. And it's really hard. One of the things that makes it really hard is that you have people with lots of different skills who have to collaborate effectively. So you have designers and engineers and data scientists and marketing people, and getting all of those talented specialists to communicate effectively and make something great is really hard. It's just really hard. And so that's been the thread that connects everything I've done. And then at some point, as I got more senior and more experienced with leading people, I started teaching people how to do this. And eventually my background, what I did study in school was writing. And so I started writing about this. And so for the last 12 plus years, I have either by myself or with my co-author, we've been writing about this stuff. And here we are.
I love it. Okay, so how does and talk to me about like the business model that supports what you do, and how that works. Because I think when you were describing that to me earlier, it was really fascinating.
So I've done this work in a lot of different contexts. So I've done it in house. I've done it for consulting firms. about in 2011, I started a consulting firm of my own. It was a small company. We ran that with a few partners. We ran that for about 4 years, and then we sold it. And since then, I've been on my own. The place where you work and the context of it and the business model shapes the way you deliver your service. And so, as an independent person, which I was for 10 years, you end up doing a lot of coaching because you can't really do that much hands-on work. So I was doing a lot of coaching and a lot of training, collaborating with different partners. And eventually the collaboration that became the most productive was the collaboration with my business partner, Jeff Gothelf, who's also my co-author. And so the business model is pretty simple. We train people, right? And so we sell training either for a while. Before the pandemic, it was a lot of in-person. We fly around the world and drop in on a company, spend a day or 2 or 3 with them, teach a class and move on, sometimes stay engaged through coaching. With the pandemic, we sort of moved to remote training, which has a lot of some downsides, but also some upsides. And so from about 2020 until last year, the business model was we sell remote training. Jeff and I show up on a Zoom meeting and we offer training to live to groups of 20 to 50 people.
That's amazing. And it's the same role that you're talking about in terms of like that product management, like you're helping experts communicate clearly on like, is it like specific product launches or ongoing work?
Yeah, we're teaching methods to digital product teams. So we teach them how to think about and do product strategy, how to think about and do product design, how to collaborate in cross-functional ways, how to do what we call discovery, which is a really big thing. Discovery is, it's a lot of syllables for talking to your customers. And then figuring out what they need and sort of iterating in a continuous way based on what you're learning, So we're teaching product management and design and methods for collaborating. And we do that in kind of, we'll bite off a little topic and go deep on it. We'll take on broader topics. Sometimes we do longer training engagements. We'll do, anything from a few hours to 6 months of engagement with a company.
That's cool. So it sounds like the work that you do, like there's like this like really interesting blend between like there's a science and a method to like getting the information that you need from the team and from the customer to be able to develop a good product. But there's also probably like a lot of creativity and innovation that happens in terms of bringing something interesting and innovative to market. Yeah, is that accurate?
Yeah, and I think that's a good summary. And what I try to do in my work is to give teams sort of very simple, practical frameworks that allow them to ask the right questions and kind of focus their creativity, right? So, for example, one of the things that we talk a lot about is how teams can be results oriented, right? Right. And, I think that there's a trap that a lot of tech teams fall into, which is, well, we built this thing and we shipped it and we're done. Right. But we all know, right? How many times have you downloaded an app from the App Store, played with it for 5 minutes and gone like, well, this doesn't solve any problem for me. Delete, And so making stuff that people use on a regular basis and get value from is really hard. And so we teach teams how to be what we call outcome focused. An outcome is when somebody is doing something more effectively with your product, right? And so we teach a very simple framework for targeting that goal, right? So the framework, and it's the name of the most recent book, Who Does What by How Much? Who does what by how much? So who's your customer or your user? Let's focus on that audience. Does what? What do you want them to do? What are they trying to do? Right? Trying to plan my meals for the week, and I want to download this app that makes it easy for me to do meal planning, or I want to learn Spanish, or whatever it is. Who does what by how much, right? Let's measure it. Let's really be disciplined and see, are they actually doing the things that we expect them to do? And so that's a hard problem, right? It's a really hard problem, and it requires a lot of creativity, a lot of insight, a lot of research, a lot of shots at the target. And having a very simple framework to come back to at the beginning of every week, who does what by how much, right, is really powerful tool. And so that's what I try to do with my work, is to take these kind of big, hard, creative problems and give teams really simple, practical frameworks that they can use to kind of organize that difficult work.
In the teams that you've worked with, have you found let's say let's take that 3-part framework that you just mentioned. Is there one that is typically most commonly overlooked or under investigated, or is it like really group and company dependent?
You mean who does what and by how much?
Yeah,
Like which
yeah,
of those three?
yeah.
There's challenges, unique challenges for each of those, each part of that question, right? So the who, sometimes we have a vague idea, but in big companies, sometimes we're not even allowed to talk to those people, or they're very, very far away. So for example, I work with financial services companies, right? That who is some customer of the bank. They seem very far away, right? Or in a pharmaceutical company, I work with pharma as well. Who might be the doctor? Who might be the pharmacist? Who might be the end patient, right? How do we get to those people? So the challenge is finding those people. Does what? That's really hard, because if we can't find them, we don't know what they're trying to do, right?
Mm.
So we might have some notion of what we want them to do, but if we can't find them to talk to them, we're just guessing. And then by how much is really hard, because putting those systems in place to measure what people are doing is difficult and usually an afterthought.
Yeah. So I think what's really interesting about everything you described is like typically, and this is what I've seen with like companies that I work like from a marketing perspective, is it's very easy for companies to get really focused on the product, like on their offering, right? Like it needs to have these features and we want it to do this and have this tech implementation and these capabilities or whatever. And like everything that you're talking about in those frameworks are like completely customer centric and customer focused, customer measured, right? And having the answers to those questions, who does what by how much, it should directly impact the specs of the product. But oftentimes it's, yeah, from a marketing perspective, I experience that all the time where a company's like, I have this program and it's amazing and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, like what is the true impact or ROI on the customer? And they're like, well, the product does this and it does this and it does this. And I'm like, no, like why should
Right.
they care? And they're like, well, because it's amazing and it can do this and this. And I'm like, it's
Yeah.
hard to focus on the customer. I've experienced that from my lens as a marketer.
Yeah. And my previous book talks all about that problem. My previous book is called Outcomes Over Output. And it's exactly what you're talking about. An outcome, who does what by how much. Output is this amazing program that slices and dices and makes julienne fries, right? And so it's like you need to have the product. You need it. You need to make the output. But who cares about the output if it's not creating the outcome? Right?
Yeah. So, man, so like the work you do is like really, really important. Do organizations like realize that they like in like the industries that you're working in, like in finance and pharma, like do they realize that there's a mismatch and they need to bring in someone like you? Like is it a difficult sell, or like how do companies know that they need a Josh Seiden and his business partner to come in
Yeah.
and help with this?
So, I mean, until last year, the main source of my sort of lead flow came from my writing, and I've been lucky with a couple of my books that they are pretty popular, and so Outcomes Over Output is a book that it's a very small book. It's um, it mostly gets good reviews on Amazon, but every once in a while someone says, this book is really short. It's very short. And
That's
that's
funny.
intentional. It's designed to be read, on an hour-long train commute. But it's a very powerful book, and it captures this idea. And it's a book that, oddly, when people read, if you look at the sales numbers on it, people read it and then they buy 50 copies and they give it out at their company.
Interesting.
Because it's short, because it's small, it's an easy thing to give out.
It's like a handbook.
So, yeah. And so then, people read the book, and then, I get an inbound lead saying, hey, we read your book and we want some of that. Right.
That's amazing. So the book has been a good lead generation tool for you, and then they're like, "Hey, we need like we see the frameworks in the book and like how powerful they can be. We need help
Yeah.
implementing this into our company."
And it brings me one of the things I came to understand sort of in the midpoint of my career was that if I put out material that said, here, this is what I believe, right? This is how I think about work. These are my values. Then what happens is the people who then pick up the phone or send me an email are people who share those beliefs. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to spend a lot of time convincing my buyers, hey, this is how I think, right? They're pre-qualified in terms of being aligned from a point of view. So like putting out this like very clear point of view brings people who share that point of view to me. And so it's been the harder part is then once you get into the organization, then all bets are off and you're meeting people who may not share your point of view, and you have to bring those folks along. But at least in the initial part of the work, that tactic is very, I found it very powerful.
Yeah, I love that. Like, let's talk about that for just a moment. So, was that always an intent that you had with your writing, or is that something like as you've looked back and reflected and thought, wow, like I didn't realize that my writing would create like an indoctrination effect, right? And an attraction effect, like how you said, right? It'll attract the people that think that way or have those same values to want to work with you. Like was that intentional from the beginning, or is that like a happy byproduct of your
It's something I discovered after I'd been putting ideas out there for a while. When I started my career in California. I'm from New York and I live in New York, and I relocated back to New York City. And I had really no professional network in New York, and I had to build a professional network when I came back home. I had been working in California for an amazing guy named Alan Cooper. Alan is a designer and a real pioneer in the world of software. And he built his business on thought leadership. And Alan is a person who, the more controversial a position he could take, the happier he was. He's just a natural contrarian. And so I remember the first week that I worked for him, we went to an industry event in Silicon Valley, and he was the second keynote speaker at this event. The first keynote speaker was a really well-known, well-respected, very successful design leader. And he got up and he presented his thing and it was very impressive. Alan got up on stage immediately after and said, I just want to tell you, everything you just heard is wrong.
right after the first
Right
speaker?
after, like not 10 minutes after,
You're kidding. Wow, that's bold right there.
That's bold. And so I just kind of thought that was how it was done. Like I didn't have any other models. I was just like, when I got back to New York, I was like, okay, I have to start speaking and writing. And how do you do that? Well, you take a strong position about something. And then it wasn't until, so that was in 2000. And when I opened my own firm in 2011, what I discovered was there were people who were coming who wanted to work for me because they were familiar with me because of my writing. And they said, okay, well, we like these ideas. We want to work for somebody is building a business based on these ideas.
That's so cool. I love that. This is really inspiring for me because like personally, I love to write, but I'm a big journaler, right? And I process a lot of my thoughts and my life in my journal. And rarely things only make it public when it's pretty polished. It's whether that's on a social media post. Like I self-published a book a couple of years ago, just kind of for fun to just kind of test out the self-publishing realm. Yeah, no, this is just really, really good. I really appreciate you sharing this because just that concept of putting your ideas out there, even if, and I know that like books are not half baked, but even from a perspective of publishing on like social media channels, like as you share your ideas, your values will come through and it will attract people to your work and increase your idea output and your impact, and all of that. And so, yeah, no, it's really good. Yeah, just thank you personally for like sharing this. This is good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. I would say one thing that helps, I identify a lot with that kind of, I don't want to put anything out that's not polished. And so I have a couple of different channels for my writing, but one of the things so I have my personal Substack where, my like perfectionism and obsessiveness, that's like Okay, I deal with that stuff over there. And I write about a mix of professional and personal things on my Substack. But my business partner, Jeff, he and I are very complementary personalities. And so he's somebody who's like, get it out there, get it out there. It's ready, go, 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 push, push. And I'm somebody who's like, no, wait, 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 wait. This is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong. And, he probably has a little too much get it out there. And I definitely have a little too much perfectionism. And so when the two of us are working together, it's really powerful because we help each other kind of solve for our worst weaknesses
Yeah.
and we play off each other's strengths.
So, Josh, are you working on anything right now? Are you like any books in the works, or are you letting the new one that you just mentioned kind of run its course for a bit?
The focus now is on growing our business. And so I described in the beginning of our conversation how the business was sort of me and my business partner delivering training. About a year ago, we sort of looked at that business. It's a consulting business. And so our inventory, our ability to grow is really all about our hours. How many hours can we show up at the client site? And obviously, it's a finite number. And so what we decided to do was to build a network of qualified trainers who we built a very strong curriculum library that we really believe in. And so we have built a network of folks around the world who we've now trained and qualified to go out and sell and deliver this material. And so the attention, we finished our last book last year, and there's probably another one coming in a few years. But for now, the focus is on working on the business and sort of taking our own medicine about how to do product management and building our own business.
I love that. Okay, so you have this network of trainers that could allow you to essentially be able to work with more companies at scale. Is the focus in equipping and training those people right now, or is it in actually like landing more contracts to give these people work? And yeah.
Yeah, so it's both. It's both. A lot of the way that we think about the business, I talked about frameworks in the beginning. And so one of our frameworks is this idea of a hypothesis, right? We have an assumption that we can grow the business. So how do we test to see whether that's true? And so the first test was, were there highly qualified trainers who had good training businesses who would be interested in partnering with us? And so that was our first test. Could we build a network of these folks? And amazingly, we built a network of between 30 and 40 incredible people
Let's go.
from, India, Canada, South America, Europe, really all over the world. It's amazing. Then the second was, could we train them to do a great job and deliver great experiences? And we're getting great reviews on the work that they're doing. So, first hypothesis, yes. Second hypothesis, yes. Third was, can they make a great living as part of our network, right? And we recruited people who we were confident could do a good job both delivering the material but also selling the training, right? So it wasn't just us selling anymore. And what we've discovered is that is not a slam dunk. That selling is hard, and selling from the traditional tools that we've used, me and Jeff, which has been thought leadership, inbound thought leadership to create inbound sales. For these folks, it's not sufficient, right? Because they do business development, but they're not all thought leaders in the industry to the same level that we are. And so we're just starting we went with that for not quite a year, 6 months, 8 months, something like that. And we've just brought on our first salesperson to try to supplement their efforts. So we've got a couple of different sales channels going now for the first time.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What are some of those? Like, is it a like lead volume thing, or is it the actual like getting companies to commit to wanting the training and then you just need to input the consultant?
Well, we're just starting kind of an outbound sales operation.
Cool.
Yeah. And so and honestly, I don't know a whole lot about how to do that, to be perfectly frank. So we've hired someone who does know a whole lot about that. And so that's the next adventure, is to be working with her and helping us kind of build that capability in the business.
That's fantastic. I love it. I love it. Well, I'm excited, and I love how you broke it down. Like, we proved this hypothesis and then this hypothesis, and we're working on, we tried this one, and it needed to be altered slightly, so we're trying a different hypothesis. You've got an awesome curriculum brain. It's been really fun. And so the big initiative coming up is growth, right? You're wanting to grow this thing and see how it goes. Are there any other hypotheses that you're trying to that you have on the docket to test when it's time?
Well, I think there's always this opportunity. The industry changes so quickly. And so, the get comfortable with something. And then, that like early in my career, I was working with technology companies in Silicon Valley. All of a sudden we had the internet. Everybody had to, internet everything. We had the internet fridge. Remember those years? People were selling
Yes.
internet fridges. And then all of a sudden, 10 years later, we have the rise of mobile, right? Suddenly everybody needs an app. I literally have had clients that say, I need an app.
And you're like, to do
Why do you
what?
need an app?
I don't know.
Yeah, everybody needs an app. And so now it's AI, right? I need AI. Give me AI. We're going to have the AI fridge before the end of the year, I promise you. And so, what that really does mean is that although there's some fundamentals for any business, whether it's a technology business or, the corner dry cleaner, which is to understand who your customers are and serve their needs, the way you do that changes. So, what we're hoping is that once we get these you asked me about the next hypothesis. The hypothesis is that we'll be able to specialize a little bit. And, when it's just me and Jeff running the business, we're the founder and the janitor and the cook and the navigator, And so, I'm very interested in that curriculum development stuff and being able to have more time to spend on curriculum development. So hopefully this thing will start ticking and
Yeah.
then, we'll be able to work on that stuff.
I love it. Oh man, I'm so excited for you. This has been fantastic. Josh, it's been such a pleasure having you on today and just gleaning from your expertise and getting a window into your brain and how you think and the really high quality work and important work that you do with companies to make sure that they create products that people actually want to use and that they will use. So thank you so much for bringing your expertise. So thank you so much.
Well, it's been great to be here and talk to you. And thank you for the excellent questions.
Absolutely. Okay, so for people that want to get in contact with you, follow you, find your material, whether that's your Substacks or your books, like give us the details. How do people get in touch?
So the starting place, my company is Sense and Respond Learning, and you can find us at senseandrespond.co, senseandrespond.co. There's no M. We couldn't afford the M. Senseandrespond.co. My Substack is Joshua Seiden at Substack, and my personal website is joshuaseiden.com. I got the M there.
You could afford the M on that one. Huh?
Yeah, yeah. And so any one of those three places will lead you to the others.
I love it. Guys, so I'm going to link those directly in the episode notes, and so you can click onto those directly and be able to connect with Josh and his thought leadership. And yeah, so again, thank you so much, Josh, for coming. And guys, thank you so much for listening. We know that your time is valuable. So for you to choose to spend some time with us absolutely means everything. And so until next time on the Marketing Matrix.